Peace. Have my mic. Yes. Let's give it a couple of minutes here. See if anybody's coming in for another impromptu conversation. Peace, Cat. Hope all is well today, Tuesday. Give it a let's give it a couple of moments. See if anybody is out there in cyber world. I know people working, but just try to get on here when I can get on here. Of course, you can always catch this on the replay. I wish I could play some music on this side, just some buffer music. But it is what it is. We're going to flip the script here today. Last night, I talked about the POTUS from one perspective, from the WWE perspective. Peace, Natalia. I talked about it from that perspective of, you know, uh, those different aspects of people getting caught up in the energy type thing. Now we're going to flip the script because everything is about thinking in nuanced thinking. So that same character that we looked at and we see all these, all these different traits that we looked at. Even in the midst of that, this particular character can give you magical clues. All right. And today I want to talk about one of them, and then I want to show how it has shown up in my life. Okay. And I want to try to demonstrate how everyone needs to be thinking without being egotistical, because we're in an environment where everybody want to put this image out that I'm super whatever, and it's a kind of a facade. We're encouraged to put out this facade to the world. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a realization at a deep level that you are the main character in the saga. You are the main character of the story. And this is what the theme behind the children's movie, I think it came out in the early 80s, the never ending story, where this little boy had been, ignored or either picked on or abused by people, bullied. And he got on his journey by going on that Saturnian, uh, Capricornian, going back into his cave and retracting, pulling back from the world. He went into hermit mode. He found this little room at the school, this abandoned room where, if I remember correctly, he found this book and he started reading this book and he got engulfed in the story. And the storyline plays out that as he goes, he realizes that the story is really about him. He's the main character. While he's getting caught up in all the characters in the story, he's not realizing that they just represent different states of his own consciousness, of his own journey. My point is that some of what I'm going to try to demonstrate today about me personally is it will be showing how I use studying this stuff that I talk about, and I'm able to go back and reflect, and I'm able to even understand my own journey better about who I have been and my destiny. And I invite you to approach your path in the same manner. You are the never ending story. And with this approach, we're working today to make 13 great again. To make 13 great again. I'm going to try to piece all this together. I'm going to start with the number 23 first, though. You know, I found it very odd that Jim Carrey made this movie about 23 years ago. This ominous type of, and I can't remember the whole how it all went. I haven't seen it in years, but this number kept following him. It just really kind of gave me chills when I watched it because the number 23 has followed me and it hasn't necessarily been pleasant. On the 23rd day, around the 23rd day of May 2000, I got into a little bit of trouble. And if I can ever go and find, because my daddy kept all types of paperwork and stuff, and if I can find when the original thing was, if that has a time on it, I gotta cast a chart for that. But I'm pretty sure it was 5/23, 2000. My ex-wife is born on February 3rd. February 2, third day of the month. There we go, 23 again. And there have been a certain amount of unpleasantries around the demise of our marriage. But there's another side of 23 though. And I want to show you, and I'm going into this 23 to lead into 13. I got to start from the foundation first. That I want to show you something. Okay. My piece, Faye. My When I was growing up, I grew up on a street called Tacoma Circle, and I think Tacoma means friends. I think Tacoma means friend. Okay. So if and then what I'm trying to show you is how I I'm using all this stuff to identify the main character, me and my story. And I'm gonna show you things that we overlook that I believe are significant. I believe there's nothing, if this thing is a simulation, then it would behoove us to pay more attention to every detail within the simulation to figure out what is the nature of the main character. So the main character in my story is me. So I'm reared on a street named Tacoma Circle. Okay. And it just so happened that I would get into years later, late adulthood, I would end up being in a profession that deals with the circle of life, which is the zodiac. But that's just a sidebar. I just thought about that just now. That's a sidebar. We're not going to get sidetracked, Jamal. So if Tacoma means friend, then Tacoma Circle, I would call this circle of friends. Now, which is something I never had a lot of, no big circle of friends. Now, for me, my son is in Aquarius. Aquarius is naturally assigned to energetically to the 11th house. And what's one of the words associated with the 11th house? Friends. If you go back and study your life, study what street you grew up on, look at your address, look at streets that you lived on when you had these major, major changes in your life. And I'm telling you, you will find a storyline. It's like a Hollywood script. You pay attention to the numbers, you pay attention to the city you were in, the state, and just don't try to force it, but just analyze it. Maybe nothing will come out of it, but maybe something will emerge and you'll see a storyline. I came off of the circle of friends, which naturally would denote something from a symbolic astrological standpoint, something to deal with Aquarius. Aquarius 11th house is also groups, groups that you associate with relative to a commonality around creative expression or natural expression or sense of identity, because the opposite of Aquarius or 11th house is the fifth house, which is the natural domain of Leo. Leo is my personal creativity. The 11th house, Aquarius, is where I find communion, where people allow me to be me, which was something that I would be seeking in this life. Okay. Now, on this circle of friends, we lived at the address of 163. Okay. Peace, poetic heart, peace, pink petal. And if you add that up, and I mean, you could go, I could go down the rabbit hole. We can look at the gematria of 163. We could look at words that are associated, but we're gonna keep it basic. When you take 163, if we break them down to a two-digit number, they add up to 10. And we're gonna stop it right there for right now because I want to show you something. Two doors down from us, my grandmother, Dorothy, lived at 157 Tacoma Circle. 157, first of all, I want to break this down to, I want to break down the one and the five first. I want you to see that that's a six and then a seven. So we first want to identify that six and a seven. Then we'll go a step further to see that six and seven equal 13. These are two different things here I got to highlight. 67, I will come back to this. But 157, which in one regard is 67, but also if we just go basic math, one and five is six, six and seven is 13. What is 13 plus 10? 23. Now, I carry, oh, this is 91. I might have run out of the other ones. I had, I don't know if I got any more left, but here it goes. Here's one. I bought these bookmarks a few years ago. And these 91, the first pack I got was bookmarks that had Psalm 23 on them. Okay. Here's what's significant about Psalm 23. At 157 Tacoma Circle, my grandmother Dorothy first introduced me to playing the piano, and she also taught me my first Bible verse, which was Psalm 23. So you look deep enough, you'll find there's a storyline that's been playing out in your life. And if you study your chart and keep looking at the peripheral details, you'll see it's a it's almost like a movie script. Now, the other one I have, the other pack of bookmarks I got has Psalm 91. So the woman who introduced me to Psalm 23, the first the foray into the Bible, she passed or transitioned at 91. So these always remind me of my grandmother who lived at 157. All right. Now, 13, we've all grown up considering or being taught that on some level that 13 is unlucky. It is anti Jupiter because Jupiter is considered to be luck. So we've been taught that 13 is anti Jupiter because Jupiter would be expansion. So there's something about loss associated with the number 13. Our generation was ingrained with this through the Friday the 13th series with Jason, right? And then naturally, when you attached on the 80s was the prime decade for horror movies, while Pluto was in Scorpio. This is when Nightmare on Elm Street comes out, Friday the 13th. I'm not a movie buff, but I'm sure y'all know all the other, you can think of all the other. Those are two main um, themes that pop out to me in the 80s, but I know there were others. You can put them in the comments when you go back and watch the replay. But it was seeded especially in our minds, and it had already been something around the 13th being lucky. Oh, it's Friday the 13th. And so we automatically are programmed to expect some type of something bad maybe to happen. You notice here that we don't have a 13th floor in our elevators. So that further solidifies this idea of 13 being unlucky or anti-Jupiterian. So in the mythology, Jupiter's nemesis is his father, Saturn. And if you look at their glyphs, it is almost like they're the antithesis of each other just in their glyphs. Here, Saturn has the S here, and Jupiter has it up here at the top. So Jupiter, if we looked at this like the zodiac, this would be the southeast, and Saturn's down here, where that S is on Saturn's glyph, would be considered the northwest. So they are oppose each other in even the most simple assessment of the symbols that represent them. There's opposition. In the mythology, Saturn tries to eat his son Jupiter for fear that he would overthrow him. So 13 then would by default take on somewhat of the energy of Saturn. But we got confirmation of that because the 67 here, when we spell out, I can't get rid of this thing. It won't go. Okay, so so if we spell out the Hebrew word binah. Binah is the name of the third sphere on the tree of life, and it is spelled Bet Yud Nun Hey. And Binah is the barren mother. And we know when we look at some of these scriptures in the Bible that many of the great prophets come from mothers who were previously barren. Binah, the third sphere, also represents understanding because the separation, the the lack of what appears to be lack of life, the withdrawing allows time for understanding. So Banah, while it's also the barren mother, it also represents understanding, which is a necessity for life. Now, that 67 also is the gematria of the word chanat. And chanat means to embrace. No, I'm sorry, not to embrace, to embalm, to spice, also representing a preservative because embalming is to preserve. Spices are used to season, and seasoning helps to preserve meat. So there's something here about enduring the test of time. Because if you're preserving, then that means there's an ability to overcome the decay that typically comes with time. So this word, excuse me, chanat is a ket, it is a nun, and a zadi, which looks like a snake ready to strike. So that's the word for 58.9. Yeah, that's chanet. So it also has a value of 67. Then you have the letter Zain. Zain. If you spell out Zain, Zain is the letter Zain. It's hard to write that one. Make it look right. It's a Zain, a Yud, and a final Nun. This is the word Zain, the letter Zain spelled out. And the letter Zain means a weapon, a sword. So if I put this together, if I'm trying to figure out something about my own life, then I could say that understanding has been a means of preservation. In other words, my ability to understand things and to give context to life has been has provided an ability to sustain my energy. And the coldness, the difficulty, the requirement for endurance, if you got to endure, then that means there's something that is stressful. There's a pain signature. Otherwise, you wouldn't feel the need. There's no need for endurance if something's not difficult. So, gaining understanding through difficulty has become almost like a secret weapon, a hidden weapon. Now, I want to show you something because I always talk about how numbers reverse. Now, we reverse this and we see, I want to show you something. I'm going to show you the old pudgy me. This is high. This is a high school picture. Let me see. My jersey. Howie Long was one of my favorite players for the Oakland Raiders back in the day, and I wanted to be like Howie Long, and I wanted to wear his number. Um, where's my share button? But a guy who was older than me already had 75, so I couldn't get that number. So fate had it that I had to wear number 76. Let me find this old picture of me. This is this is me. I don't know. This might have been 10th grade. I had gotten I had gotten fat, in 10th grade. But my jersey number from I might have had 75 in the 8th grade. My jersey number from ninth grade all through college was 76. Because once I got it in college, it just became my number. I wanted it. I embraced it. So 76 is a reversal of 67. And the number 76, gematria, one of the words associated with 76 is, how do you say this? Kahana. And it consists of a calf, a hay, a nun, and a aleph. And this word means priest. Then we have another word associated with 76, and it's mul. And mul is, and this word means circumcised. Now, if you think about the Zayin or the Zain spelled out, which is this, 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 and it means a sword. Well, we know you if you go back to some of my old videos, I talked about the esoteric meaning of I was talking about that book, the esoteric meaning of I can't remember the title of language, maybe that's it. And how symbolically the sword coincides with the phallus. And when we think of circumcision, we think of the phallus. So there's a symbolic connection here. 67 is the possession of the weapon. And the phallus also coincides with the snake. It represents enlightenment. But the 67 is almost saying that it's hidden because 67 also coincides with Banah, the barren mother. It is hidden, but it needs circumcision for this to be realized or for the awakening. The circumcision literally, well, symbolically is really talking about the pineal gland, removing the covering so that it can actually see. So the snake standing up is the equivalent of the pineal gland, the covering being moved, the calcification. Well, now we start seeing with the first eye. And this then leads to a quasi priesthood because the priesthood is also based on the ability to understand. And Idris Shah says, wisdom is when you understand what previously you only knew. So I've been putting this stuff together, trying to, okay, this has been a journey. This has been a journey. So that's high school. Then I ended up going to college in my before my senior year. I went I came down here to Texas to visit my brother Gary, and he got me in shape down here in this Texas heat, the summer of 1998. And so this picture is a much slimmer version of myself in 1998. This has got to be at the airport. I think this is, I remember this. I took this picture at Asheville Airport when I got back. Now I'm going to have to myself dig into this and look at the fact that I'm standing next to this polar bear picture because now it's making me think about the constellation, the Great Bear, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. So I got to go back and dig into this for myself. That's a new project for me because I don't think it's by happenstance. If I've gone this far into looking into the symbolism, I might as well try to see is there a connection with this polar bear and the knowing that that coin that symbolically represents Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and what they also call the Pleiades. But then this shirt I'm wearing, this is a Mecca shirt. You know, Mecca used to be hot back in in the 90s. Carl Kanai, Pele, and others, Willie Esco, um, then Sean John came out, then later on Rockaware, Fubu, So this all the I was into all of that. But on the sleeve is the number 13. So this number has been attached to me. It's been attached to me. And then going back in these pictures helped me come to this realization. Now, the number 13 is the gematria value for the peace, God, science. The number 13 is the gematria value for the Hebrew word for one. Every number in Hebrew is a word of its own, which has its own meaning. So the word for one in Hebrew is achid, which is spelled with a aleph, a ket, and a dalet. That is the word for one in Hebrew, achid, but it adds up to 13. Now, there are 13 signs in the zodiac, but they are all converging in you. So each of us symbolically represents 13. There are 13 disciples. Each of them converge at what? At the Christ figure. So Christ represents 13. So this is why Achid would be the word for one, but the one also is showing the hidden symbolism behind 13. It's unity. It's the oneness. So then you would think of, oh, so let me vilify the number 13 to scare people away from being whole subconsciously, to deter them from realizing their Christhood subconsciously by making 13 something that we fear. Now, to support this fear, though, everything's got a other side to it. We have the Hebrew word behu. And behu, when you spell it out, is a bet, it is a hey, and it's a va. Okay? Behu. Behu also adds up to 13. But Behu means the void. It means emptiness. It means chaos. So whereas Akhed is the one, the unity, Behu is the opposite. It is nothingness. Now, what do our computers run on? What were we taught? They run on zeros and ones. At least that's what they used to. Zeros and ones. Ehid and Behu. All right. And we coming to our conclusion because I'm gonna wrap this up real quick because I told you all last night that I'm creating my own symbolic wear. So the day I chose, I said, I'm always wearing these dark colors. And back in the day, you see, I had an orange shirt on. Back in the day, I used to be loud color Larry, back, especially when the Versace shirts was all in. I used to have the silk, shirt with the I can't forget what we used to call those hats with the big brim. I was on my BIG, the rayon and the silk shirts. And I used to wear, the lime green. I used to dress up when I left Texas, I went back. My brother gave me some of his clothes. I went back before our football games. I was dressing like Deion Sanders, lime green shoes, lime green shirt, the sunglasses. They was like, man, they was like, what didn't happen to him? Came back prime time on him. And then, but at a certain point, I stopped wearing, probably maybe like 12, 13 years ago. I stopped wearing, just everything was black, black. Something told me, I said, you know what? I'm gonna get this green, you know? And I put on this shirt. This is just a prototype because this image is gonna be bigger, right? It's a smaller version on me. But if you look at this, and I took the star off, on this particular one, because I want to be a little more incognito. When you put the hex alpha, which they call the Star of David, it tends to draw in, you know, this is more confusing because nobody can make sense of this. This is the 13 that I've been talking about. And and on this shirt, I also have, okay, I call this shirt the computer. Because what do we say? The computer we were originally taught runs on zeros and ones. The 13 is in the middle because the Christ figure is in the middle. This is you. You are the main character in the story. You have the potential of wholeness. Aleph, Ket, Dalet, that spells Achid, this unity. But at the same time, you understand how to create out of the void because in the beginning there was a void. And for anything to be creative, we have to void the previous whatever out, previous reality, previous thoughts. So then we're going to acknowledge bet, bet, hey, va. And you see, but that's the two triangles. One is upright, Akid is upright, and the Behu is the inverted triangle. So this shirt is a computer. And when you wear this shirt, you are programming your mind internally that you are able to take all chaos and bring it back into wholeness. You also are making a statement saying that I have the power of transmutation. And this initial color I'm rolling out in green because we putting this power around resources. Green is a color of the heart chakra, but it's the abundance of the earth. And we want to be able to realize what we have in our possession. This shirt is leading up to Taurus season when the green hues of the earth really start to burst again. The earth is back alive. And we need to make sure that our finances are back alive. And something hit me, say, I got to stop wearing all these dark colors like I've been. I need to bring some other vibrations into my being like I used to. I need to stop trying to not be seen. People gonna see me whether I'm in all black or running around here dressed like Roger Rabbit. So I need to stop just always in matte black. Like, yeah, it kind of feels good to have on a brighter color. Like I feel different, you know? So this is one of the designs. I got other one, but each one, I'm going to roll them out with something like this. There's going to be some teaching around it. But we're making the number 13 great again because we're realizing what it really means. It means that you are the main character in the show, in the saga, in the story. That's what it represents. So, and the book I was trying to think of is The Encyclopedia of Esoteric Man. That's the one. Um, so Trump, when he first got elected, he came out talking a lot about William McKinley. And see, I was about to forget this. I'm glad it just popped back up in my mind. Because William McKinley was part of something called the 13 Club. It was a secret society type thing. So I was wondering, why does he keep talking about him? And so I just went and looked him up, and I thought it was very interesting, his association with this 13 Club. So even somebody that we would identify as whatever our opinion is on this person, this character called Donald J. Trump, just the mentioning of that dude's name, independent of how they use their association with 13, it's a clue for us to investigate that number and for us to reclaim it at an energetic level and make 13 great again. In other words, make myself great again, reinvigorate my power station, reinvigorate my own power by taking time to assess what I actually possess. What do I possess? What do I have of value? Everybody got something. It's just sometimes we just not able to quite lock in and identify. Everybody got something that they can draw out of them that is magical, i.e., powerful. And making 13 great again represents that. Sitting with yourself and assessing, what you have, but first realizing from a mature and evolved state that you are the main character in the movie. You're the main character in the book. So y'all do this for me. I need you to like this video. I need you, if you got some, whatever, share the video or whatever. But I need you also to come back in the comments and let me know if you would rock something like this. Let me know. Give me some what do they call it? What do they call that? Some market studies. Let me know if you would rock something like this. And when I get my larger ones in, I will peace wise, peace sage. When I get the other ones in, because it'll be a larger image, then I'll show it. But I appreciate y'all. Appreciate the energy. And we'll be back with the next download. And until then, know the stars and know yourself. Stay down till you get up. And when you get up, stay down and make your way over to 720astrology.com and feed yourself on all levels. Peace.